faulty, and I think that every time we go into a lift anywhere, and I sort of stood back, let my lady go first, and the damned lift closed on her and kept closing.
Oh no!
And I was being a martial arts man. I suddenly flipped, and I imagined that this was an opponent threatening my girl. I hit the damned lift so hard that the door bent. She extricated herself from the gap and said as she took my hand, "We'd better go up the stairs, darling, before they find out what you did to their lift." But,
I was told that you manage him.
I do.
Yes,
yeah,
I
she
do.
does. Yeah, she does.
Otherwise he'll never remember where he's going.
Sure. And yes, she gets me there, puts me in front of either the camera or the microphone, and I take over from then. And she says, "We finished this one, dear. Come." Off we go to the next show. And was there anything specially that you'd like me to include?
Let me think.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Oh,
We were laughing about arm
go
wrestling
ahead.
for the biscuits, and it put me off completely.
Yes. Besides, he kind of looked like a Viking, so you maybe think, well, the Norse gods and everything.
Yeah.
What would you like to discuss?
All sorts of possibilities. Favourite author and style of stuff.
Yeah.
'Cause, I always have a couple of favourite authors, and Terry being, of course.
Oh,
one
Terry
of them.
being one, of course. Yeah.
Terry who?
But no, it's always interesting to find out what other people think sort of they got as a favourite author.
Yeah, I think it's very illuminating. If you do, I think it's a lovely point to mention. And you were saying?
Oh, I was going to say that I would like for you guys to pray for me, but not now, later maybe.
Okay.
Thank you. I just got a diagnosis. It's not very good. So it's not. I'm not dying. It's not cancer. It's just something that's uncomfortable.
Oh,
so
sorry. Well, we will certainly
okay. Thank
certainly include you in our prayers.
Thank
you. Right. So I won't ask you what you'd like me to talk about, because we've done most of it together. Okay.
Just
So
prompt you now.
yeah, just prompt it out again. Make sure I don't miss anybody out. Well, if we start with the mixture of the motorbikes and the mysteries, we were filming part of the 40th series, and the guy who the studio had hired to take us down to wherever the next location was, suddenly said, "Did you ever hear of the mysterious motorcyclist on the Maidenhead Road?" And we said, "No." And he said, and he was so detailed, he said he had actually been in the car when this happened. It wasn't somebody told him that something, it wasn't third, fourth, fifth hand. And he said he and his friend, they were riding in a big old Triumph Renown, which we instantly remembered because we once had a Triumph Renown. They were known as the poor man's Rolls Royce. You know, they had that same straight, hard front, wonderful old cars. And I can remember when we first had it. Do you remember driving it? And Trish, not being that big, was actually looking through the wheel when she dropped it. It's a colossal old car. And anyway, our driver was telling us that he and his friend had been in one of these, and they were heading off down pretty well from the A4 down towards Maidenhead on that heading south. And he said it was a horrible foggy night, and suddenly, out of nowhere, a motorbike hit the front of the car, crunch, and they got out and they could see the wing was dented. Now this is what is so odd about this whole story. They looked everywhere for the wreckage of the bike and of course an injured rider. They couldn't find a thing in the fog. So being decent guys, they drove on into Maidenhead, stopped at the first police station, went in to report. And the desk sergeant was very interested. "Yes, your name, sir, and your make, model car, and your registration number. And whereabouts roughly was this where it happened?" I told him where it happened. And an old constable, rather like Dixon of Dock Green, at the back of the station, called across, "I wouldn't bother noting that down, Sarge." Of course, everybody freezes and says, "Why not?" And he said, "In the 24, because it's a relatively new desk sergeant, he said, in the 24 years I've been here, that has been reported at least 5 times." He said, I've been out on 3 of the calls, and he said, there's never anything there. He said, there was an accident there nearly 30 years ago, and the bloke was killed. But, now, how do you explain, because we can't, how do you explain the actual physical damage to the car, unless it was, what, for want of a better term, might be called a time glitch, that something had reenacted itself at a different time. You know the famous theory of time as being like a ball of wool, and where the 2 strands cross each other, you can move over a period that would take several years if the strand went round in its normal way. But the fact that it had been reported so often, and that this hard-bitten old Dixon of Dock Green type policeman said, I've been out to 2 or 3 of those. Now, we found that totally inexplicable as a motorbike mystery. And the other one that I mentioned when you asked me about mysteries with motorbikes was Dr. Helby. And Dr. Helby had been the prison doctor in Dartmoor Prison. And this was 1921-22 sort of period. He had a massive old combo, and he had with him the 2 young daughters of the prison governor, and he was going along that stretch of road between Post Bridge and 2 bridges, and he went off the road and was killed. The 2 little girls in the sidecar survived, because remember those good old Watsonian sidecars, they were built like tanks, and you were as safe in one of those as you would be in a car. But Dr. Helby himself was thrown off and killed. And for about 3 years, and we went and investigated that stretch of road in the hope that something would happen.